Why, hello. So I thought it'd be fun to compare three Altra shoes. You can see I've worn them a lot. I'm going to talk about the Altra Paradigm. This is the Altra TiMP, and this is the Altra Lone Peak 3.5. Now, basically, the big difference is going to be how thick the sole is. So the Lone Peaks are 25 millimeters. The TMPs are 29 millimeters, and the Paradigm is 30. The only thing bigger than the Paradigm as far as stack height goes, stack height is how tall this is the Olympus. I've not tried those yet. I still want to, but they're like 150 bucks. You know, they're not giving them away. The main difference is the stack height. So with the Lone Peaks, with the stack height of 25, you do feel a lot more rocks. There's no way around that. You're going to feel a lot less rocks with a TMP at a stack height of 29. And then with a stack height of 30, it's also just a little bit better, but the Paradigm sole feels a lot softer than the TMP sole. The TMP feels more like a real hiking boot, if you remember what those feel like from 10 years ago. As far as the tread goes, the Lone Peaks have a real good grip, and the TMPs have a little bit kind of a more funky grip, but I really can't tell a difference going up or down hills or on rocks or on mud. The big difference is the Paradigms are basically a running shoe. So why do you use that when you hike? Well, because they're so cushy that it's just like it's so comfortable. If you're walking in the desert, if you're walking out doing road walks, the only thing they don't work on would be snow. Even with mud, they're not too bad. They're not as good as you know, this kind of sole is going to be, but they do okay. So why would you use these? Because they're just so cushy. I was watching Heather Anish Anderson do her triple crown in one year, and she used these shoes a lot. She didn't use them in the snow, but she used them in probably both deserts. So they are incredibly good at that. So if these had tread like that, I mean, I would pick these first all the time. So as far as the uppers go, the Lone Peaks are a little softer than the TMPs. The TMPs feel like they would be better at going downhill, and then the top feels a lot stiffer and more stable. The 3.5s are better than they used to be. God, remember the 2.5s? Those were like house shoes. So these are more stiff, but they're not as stiff as this is. The Paradigms are pretty loose. There's not a lot to it. So if you're looking for a good upper support shoe, this probably isn't it. I like to read Andrew Skirka, and that's his one main complaint about Ultras is that there's too much slippage in the top. I never minded that. I mean, unless you're going off a real steep off camber slope, I never even noticed that. Things like padding is different. The Lone Peaks have a pretty good amount of padding back here, but the TMPs have a lot less. It's a lot thinner. You'd think that your heel would come out of the shoe more. It doesn't, and I don't really even notice the thin padding. I was looking at the newer version of the TMP they just came out with. It looks like they've kind of gone back and gone to a thicker padding. I always liked that part, but I never really had a problem with it before. The one shoe I felt that way about like 4 years ago was the old Olympus. It felt like your heel came out because there wasn't much height here. It was very short. I think they've changed that in the new ones. So the Lone Peak comes with its own gator trap. The TMP comes with its own gator trap. So I just took and glued on some Velcro with shoe glue and a piece of tape. Works great. The Altras have a straight tongue, and for some reason the TMPs come with a slanted tongue. I'm not sure what the reason of that. I can't feel a difference. It looks different, and these come with a straight tongue. So as far as space in the toe box, they all pretty much feel the same. I really can't tell. They're pretty much all about as wide. And in addition, all three of these have the zero drop, which means that the front of the shoe is the same distance off the ground as the back of the shoe. So your foot rides flat. Other shoes have a bigger gap, a bigger amount of foam here than here. So those are meant to give you a little bit more of a kickoff, but it doesn't really work too good for hiking, maybe jogging, but I don't know about that. As far as wear goes, I've only gotten about 400 miles out of Lone Peaks. I don't get them, they don't tear, they don't rip. What you feel is that the sole becomes a little more compressed, and you kind of feel the impact of the road more, or rocks. So when I start to feel that kind of harshness, it's time to change the shoe out. And when you change to a new shoe, it does feel instantly better. So these I've maybe gotten about 300 miles on, and they're starting to compress a little bit right in there, right in this part. So I'll probably have to change these out. It's not that they're torn, it's just that, and maybe if you have 22-year-old feet, you can handle a lot of variance as the shoe gets old. But when you have old feet, they're more sensitive to breaking the shoes down, to feeling pain from the shoes breaking down. Of all of them, I think this would probably last the longest. It just feels more stiff. There's just more, it's more rigid. And I think other than probably the Olympus, this would probably be my next longest used shoes. I'll probably transition out of the Lone Peaks and move more into like a TiMP. The main reason is that I don't like the feeling of my heel strike being too pronounced, and that if it's got a little bit more stack height, it kind of absorbs more and drives less shock up through your leg. So I'll probably switch over to the TiMP. And I do want to try out the Olympus. Never ends, does it? Never ends. And I would just suggest that if you have never tried the Paradigm, especially if you're doing dry trails, maybe road walks, maybe without snow, I've really liked them. So that's my review of the Lone Peak 3.5, the TiMP, and the Paradigm. They're fantastic shoes, but each one does have its little quirks. So I hope that helps somebody, and we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.